You got a house under contract, now let's get you closed. Let's get into it. Hey guys, how you doing? Werenka here. I'm the state of Michigan broker for Simply Home, the fastest growing real estate company in the United States. I've got an all-star team of agents. So whether you're looking to buy, sell, invest, rent, whatever you need, we've got you covered. I even do property management now. So it's definitely an exciting time when you're buying a home, selling a home, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of paperwork involved, but the main goal is to get you moved in or moved out, whichever the case may be. But there are three common things that can happen that will delay your closing. So in the spirit of making sure that doesn't happen to you, let's talk about them. The number one thing that will delay your closing, it's happened to me countless times over the last 21 years, is incomplete paperwork or contract forms. And that can be pretty much anything from the purchase agreement to the disclosure forms to any addendums that happen during the course of the contract. Now let's talk about that for a second. An addendum would be, say, we've got the property under contract, the appliances aren't included, you do your home inspection, and somewhere along the way you decide that you do want the appliances. Now we're not going to rewrite the entire purchase agreement to add those in. We're just going to draw up an addendum. And all that does is it's a one-page form that becomes part of the purchase agreement, saying that this supersedes the part of the purchase agreement saying that the appliances weren't included, and now they are. All parties sign it. Once that's done, we're good to go. So what happens is, when we're getting ready to close, the title company is the party that's responsible for coordinating the closing. So if somebody forgets to send the title company the addendum, they're not going to know that appliances are now included. So when we get our preliminary settlement statement from the title company, it might not have it on there. It'll show that those are excluded from the sale. And we want to make sure that they're included in the sale. If we don't have that addendum, or if they don't have that addendum, they'll never know that. So that's just a real basic example of something that will delay the closing. Other examples are the earnest money deposit. So if there's a $2,500 earnest money deposit from the buyer that is part of the sale, like legally that needs to be in a non-interest bearing bank account by a responsible party within 2 banking days of the fully executed purchase agreement. If you want to get bored, that's the letter of the law. That should always happen. Does it always happen? No. So we don't want to get to the point where we're a couple days away from closing and the deposit is still not there. This is pretty rare because as agents we're very cognizant of getting the deposit in, getting proof of deposit, but there's thousands of transactions that happen every day. Sometimes that gets missed. So just make sure, even if your agent doesn't, on the buyer side, if the agent doesn't tell you that, hey, I need your deposit, I need to get that in, just make sure you have that ready to go. For example, like with M1 Realty, we had our own escrow account where you could just hand me a deposit check and I'll get it in the bank account, in the appropriate account by the time it's supposed to be there. Simply Home does not have an escrow account. So we have our title company partners hold the earnest money deposits. And with the title companies that we generally use, they make it easy. You can do electronic transfers, things like that. But it's extremely important to have that where it needs to be by the time it needs to be there, just to eliminate any issues and make sure the closing is not delayed at all. And thus far, we've mostly been talking about buyer side things, contract forms that can delay the closing. There's definitely seller contract items as well that can delay the closing, like the exclusive right to sell. The title company needs to see that as well, and that's the contract form that we sign when we put the house on the market. If a listing agent doesn't forward that, that outlines, everything from list price, what's included in the sale. That'll include commission amounts both to the listing agent and potentially to the buyer's agent. I know there's, the commission structure has been changed a little bit with that recent settlement, But generally speaking, that all that stuff's going to be outlined on the exclusive right to sell form, because if the seller is not offering commission to the buyer's agent, that's going to be on there as well. So the title company, again, doesn't know what they don't know. We need to provide them with all that paperwork so that they can have everything ready to go at the appropriate time. And another one, this is a big one. This is probably the most common thing that will delay a closing on the seller side, is the mortgage payoff form. So if you're selling your home, if you already have it paid off, congratulations, that is amazing. You're in the minority of people. Most people who are selling their home still have a mortgage balance on it, and same deal as all the other paperwork. The title company needs to know how much to pay your mortgage company when it closes, because their job is to disperse. For every dollar that comes in, from the buyer side, some of that needs to go back to the mortgage company. Some of that gets paid. Who knows? Sometimes I've had people pay off other bills at closing and car payments and you name it. Some of that goes to commission for the agents, and hopefully the majority of that goes into your pocket as the seller. But title's not going to know how much to start divvying out if they don't know what the mortgage payoff is. So we're going to need to get that in. It doesn't have to be as soon as we get the property under contract, but it's probably a best practice to do it then or shortly thereafter, because depending on who you're paying your mortgage payment to, not all companies are created equal. Most of them now in this day and age, within 24 hours, will have the payoff amount, but not everybody. Some of them are 3 to 5 business days before you get that payoff. And if we forget to do that, and we're 2 days from closing, and it's going to take 5 to 7 business days to actually get that payoff amount, we're not closing until we have it. And it's not as simple as just taking your last mortgage statement and whatever the balance is, because the payoff amount's actually different than that, because they calculate some prepaid interest. There's a calculation that they use. Once we have that letter, though, that's usually good for about 45 days. So if we, say it's the first of the month when we have that form and we send it to the title company, and then they get the payoff amount back on the 3rd, say, and we're closing on the 15th. If we do have to push that closing back a little bit, say we have to close, for whatever crazy reason, we have to extend 2 weeks. So now it's closing on the 1st instead of the 15th, the 1st of the next month. You're not going to have to make a mortgage payment, because that payoff letter is good for 45 days. So generally speaking, that covers you. And if you do, what happens if you do make your mortgage payment? Say you have automatic, auto pay or whatever, and accidentally you forget to turn it off and the mortgage payment happens. Once that property closes, the mortgage company has 30 days after closing to get you back everything that's owed. So if you made a mortgage payment on accident that you shouldn't have, you're going to get it all back. It just might take 30 days or so. But it's not like the mortgage company is going to put that money in their pocket and you're not going to see it again. That's not the case. But those are the most common things that will delay a closing on the contract side, on the paperwork side. Probably the biggest ones are missing addendums and missing mortgage payoff amounts. And the addendum could be the buyer or the seller side. The mortgage payoff form is always going to be on the seller side. So make sure you're getting all your paperwork into title well ahead of your potential closing to eliminate any issues like this. The second thing that will potentially delay your closing is wire delays. So let's break that down a little bit, what that means. In this day and age, when you're closing a real estate transaction, 99 times out of 100, the title company is going to require you to send a wire transfer. So, it used to be, when I first started, you could write a personal check, hand it to the title company, and you're done. And then shortly after I started, had to be a cashier's check. And then there was enough fraud in the cashier's check world that now they all require a wire transfer. And now there's all kinds of wire fraud happening too. So the next thing that comes up, I have no idea what it's going to be. But that's another thing that'll delay the closing. For a similar reason to the paperwork, because if the paperwork's in, the title company doesn't know how much to disperse and where. But if the wire doesn't come in on time, they simply can't disperse. They know how much needs to go where, but if they don't have the funds in their account, they can't send it where it needs to go. And that could be, there's 2 wires that come in on a purchase. The one is from you, the buyer, that's going to be your bottom line amount to bring to the closing. The second one's from the lender. So if either one of those wires is delayed, we're not dispersing right at the closing table. And when I say wire, I mean an actual ABA wire transfer that you go to the bank and you sit there in the lobby for 20 minutes and get bored, and then you talk to somebody and give them your license, and it takes 45 minutes and they send it. Yep, that's what you need to do. In this day and age, a lot of times you can send it right from your computer without having to go into the bank branch. But sometimes that's what you're going to still have to do. That is not to be confused with an ACH. That would be, Venmo or Zelle or just, Cash App or whatever. The title companies will not accept that. They'll actually return that money. So when you're sending that wire out, make sure you're following. What you'll get is wiring instructions from the title company that you take to the bank, physically hand it to the personal banker so that they know where to send the funds to and how much to send. Now, before you do this, and I'm going to, I always tell all my clients this is mega, mega, mega important. I don't care if you've been exchanging emails with the processor from the title company for an entire month and you're on a first-name basis and you know each other's kids and you're going to go out for coffee after closing, all that good stuff. When you get the wiring instructions from the title company, you will call them before you send the wire and verify the funds. There's been way too much fraud. I've already talked about that a little bit, where there's been instances of, criminals hacking the title company, sending out emails that look like they're from the title company with incorrect wiring instructions, and then people send their wire thinking they're getting ready to close on a house. Next thing you know, poof, money's gone forever, no way to get it back, and you're out. You don't get the house, you're out your money. Not a good situation to be in. Nobody ever wants to be in that situation. I don't want any of you to ever be in that situation. So always, 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 always call and verify where that wire is going and how much is going before the banker initiates it, no matter what. So let's hope that there's not fraud involved in your closing, and you just need to send the wire. So an ABA wire is not instantaneous. It's not like a Venmo where you just click a button and next thing you know it's in somebody's account. It goes through the Federal Reserve before it goes from your bank to the Fed to the title company's bank, and then the title company does the same thing when they disperse. It goes back to the Fed and then wherever it needs to go. So that whole thing, usually it's pretty quick. Usually it's like an hour or less. I've had it where it's been 4 or 5 hours. So if, say you have a closing early in the morning, a 9 o'clock closing, if you just go to stop at the bank on your way to the title company, there's a good chance you're not going to receive that wire before you're done signing. So, or the alternative to that is the cutoff usually at the Fed is 4 o'clock p.m. And if you haven't initiated that wire before that, it's not going to go out till the next day. So just make sure that when you initiate your wire, make sure there's plenty of time. I always say do it the day before. That way that money's just sitting there at the title company. And ideally, that's the best case scenario in a perfect world. All the money is already sitting there in their account. All you do is sign, and then they just disperse it off and we're good. But if any of that doesn't happen, you could be looking at a delay in your closing. And there's been instances at closings that I've had for clients of mine where they've had the moving truck out in the parking lot, keys in hand, ready to pull up to the driveway of the new house and start unloading their U-Haul, and they can't because the funds haven't dispersed yet. If the funds don't disperse, they don't get the keys. So just make sure all that stuff is done well ahead of time and you won't run into any issues like that. And then the third thing that could potentially delay your closing, and this kind of is just common sense, but it's lack of communication. And I've already referenced this a couple times regarding the title company, but that's everybody involved in the transaction, is we don't know what we don't know. So if there's something that comes up and you don't tell us, then that could cause a delay in your closing just because we simply don't know. And that could be, hey, I tried to send the wire and they're having issues at the bank and it couldn't go out, or there's always a way around it, but you need to tell us so that I know what to tell the title company or the pertinent people so that we can make sure that your closing, when it's ready to go, is flawless and quick. And we are able to mitigate most of these issues because we do have in-house transaction coordinators that we use. So their whole entire job is to make sure that these problems are resolved way before they need to get to the closing table. But that's just on our end. Not every company has that. So we've had at M1 we had transaction coordinators from, I think, since 2016 or 2017. Simply Home, same deal. In fact, we were able to bring our transaction coordinator from M1 and incorporate her into Simply Home as well. So she's part of a team now. But it's just I highly recommend, if you're an agent and you're watching this and you don't have an in-house transaction coordinator, I 100% recommend you find one. There's people that will do that on a per closing basis, so that you don't have to keep them on salary or anything like that. But it's invaluable. I mean, we have enough. There's so many moving parts in a real estate transaction. Between the agents, the assistants, there's showing agents sometimes, there's mortgage involved, there's inspectors, there's appraisers, there's 2 title companies most of the time, and it takes, it's a full-time job to keep everybody organized and on task and doing things in a timely manner. So, you can go right, as an agent, you can go right back to your money-making activities and you can delegate the in-office things, making sure that transaction goes smoothly. You can delegate that out for a very small price and make it worth your while. So, if you are an agent watching this and you need and you have any questions whatsoever, we're happy to, like our transaction coordination company that we use at Simply Home. Well, they work with other companies as well, so we can definitely help you with that. Or even if you're an investor that buys a lot of properties or does wholesaling, things like that. If you need a contact for transaction coordination and just keeping an eye on getting your deals to the closing table, just reach out to me and we'll take care of that. But those are the 3 main things that I've seen over the years that will put a delay a closing, make it harder to get to the closing table, sometimes kill a deal, which in the worst case scenario, which we absolutely don't want. But it's always the best advice I can ever give is just to consult with a professional when even if you're doing for sale by owner, or just purchasing your own properties without an agent representing you. There's a lot of bumps in the road and potential pitfalls out there that you can only mitigate those through experience. And after closing a couple thousand deals, I'm sure I haven't seen everything yet, but most of that stuff I can identify from a mile away and just make sure that it's never even an issue getting it to the closing table. But we always strive to make it just a smooth, stress-free transaction that just looks like it's running like a Swiss watch, and it doesn't. But that's just the mark of a good professional, is to, when you as the client have no idea that there was drama going on, because in every real estate transaction there's always something. But the fewer times we can alert you to that, the better. So, and to you, hey, well, I went and looked at a house, I wrote an offer, whatever. In our case, 15 days later we closed. Most people it's about 30. Or hey, I just put my house on the market, I had a few showings, we got it under contract, and then I got a check in my pocket. That's what we want. You don't need to see the behind the scenes where we're frantically running around trying to take care of a punch list of like 27 different items. So the more that we can avoid you from having to stress out about that, the more that we're doing our job and showing our value as professionals. So hope this was valuable to you guys. Definitely just, if there's ever any question whatsoever, if you have a potential issue, you can always reach out anytime. Call or text. My direct line is 586-491-5622. You can email me at Werenka@simplyhome.com, and my old email address will be active forever. It's dwerenka@m1realty.net. I'm also on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it, I'm on it. Shoot me a DM, I'll respond quick. And as always, thank you so much for watching these videos, guys. I truly appreciate it. I'm just trying to bring wisdom and value to you. I've been through it all, so learn from my mistakes so you don't have to experience them for yourself. So thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of 2024 and a wonderful 2025. If there's ever anything I can do for you, say the word. Other than that, thank you so much. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks, guys.